Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Super excited. We finally hit 1,000 subscribers. So thank each and every single one of you. If you were the first 1,000 subscribers, we will be doing the drawing for our massive giveaway shortly. We're still trying to figure out a date, but I can finally tell you what the prizes are going to be. So first place, you're getting a signed NHL game worn referee sweater from number 21, TJ Luxmore. Second place is going to get any option of our merch. So you can get a t-shirt like this. It's got the nice Team Stripes logo on it. I'm covering it up. We got hoodies that if you watch other episodes, you'll see me in. We got tons of stuff. We got hats. We got pants. We got whatever you guys want. So second place, we'll talk to you, figure out what merch you want, and you'll get it. Places third through fifth are going to get a Acme whistle matte black with our engraved custom logo on it. You guys we'll just ask for your shipping address and you guys will get it sent to you. Super excited for that drawing. Look at our social media pages to figure out when we'll do it. I'll tell you guys when I know, type of thing. But for today, we are going to talk about the upcoming NHL season, or if you're watching it today, the season that starts today. And I decided that we are going to start with the Central Division. Now, each video, we're going to only do one division, as most divisions are super in depth. So we're going to start with the Central Division. There's going to be 8 teams in the Central Division, which are Carolina, Chicago, Columbus, Dallas, Detroit, Florida, Nashville, and Tampa Bay. The Central Division is going to be super interesting this year, just due to the fact that both Cup finalists and winner of the Cup are in the same division, which has never happened before, obviously, because the East team plays a West team, so we've never seen it before. So that's something that I think a lot of hockey fans are super excited for, because these guys just battled for 6 games a few months ago, and now they are going to battle 8 more times during this regular season. So really quickly, how the rundown is going to work is I'm doing it alphabetically because that was the easiest way to do it for me when I was taking all these notes. So for this one, we're going to start with Carolina. Obviously, Tampa's going to be last. Just because I have Tampa going last does not make it any less special for them. I'll do a standings prediction at the end. And yeah, so without further ado, we are going to start with the Carolina Hurricanes. After finishing last season 38, 25, and 5 for 4th in the Metro, they lost in the first round of the playoffs to the Boston Bruins. The big thing I'm going to be looking at this year would be the additions and the subtractions. So Carolina didn't have any major names come in. But they did lose a few names in Justin Williams as he retired. Joel Edmondson decided to leave the team. And then Sammy Vatanen also left the team. So there's a few holes that they need to fill, especially on defense with Edmondson and Vatanen leaving. Nothing I don't think they can, they're fillable spots, and they have a roster that's good enough and deep enough. So a few players to watch out for is Justin Martinook. I really think he can explode, have a really good season. He's always been that good player that always sticks around and is always there. And then we also have Jake Gardiner, obviously a well-established defenseman. Losing Joel Edmondson, a lot more pressure is now going to be put on him. I would like to see how he's going to respond to that. Hopefully it's positively. Him and Dougie Hamilton are going to run that back blue line in an essence. So that's going to be something to watch out for throughout the season. Now, 2 players that I don't necessarily – I listed them as quote-unquote up-and-comers. I still think there's a lot of room for them to grow, and that's going to be Sebastian Aho, who led the team with 66 points last year, which is great if you think about it. It was just under a point per game for them, so that's really good. And then Andrei Shevestnikov, obviously, I don't know how to say his name, but that kid, both of them are going to be staples in Carolina for a long time. Both of them very exciting players. And I think each year we're going to see them get better and better. Now, looking at a few of their numbers, most mostly just penalty kill and power play, so special teams. That's, to me, two big numbers to look at. Now, before we get any further into those numbers, the league average for power play percentage was 20%. So 20% of the time your team's scoring on a power play, one every 4 chances. Sorry, one every 5 chances. I'm not good at math. But anyway, so 20% of the time, Carolina scored 22% of the time on their power play. So not horrible, just slightly above league average, but not horrible for what they have on their roster. It's not bad at all. Their PK ran at 83%, and the average PK in the NHL ran at 79. So sitting at 83, you're above the average, so to say. I see Carolina, and they're a good hockey team, obviously finished 4th in the Metro. They have a great coach standing behind their bench who I think 95% of the guys would run through a wall for. And for this reason, I'm giving Carolina a chance. Definitely making the playoffs. I have them sitting 3rd right now, kind of in my preseason standings, which I'll go through later once we break down the other 7 teams in the conference. Division. So moving on, we got the Chicago Blackhawks, who finished 32-30-8 for last place in the Central Division last season. Obviously, the difference were realigned. The divisions are realigned. So the last in the Central this year is going to be different than last year, obviously. They went into the playoffs. They beat the Oilers in the qualifying round. I would say stunned them, to put it in the nicest way possible. And then they ended up losing to Vegas in the first round. Nobody was surprised by that. I think people were just happy they made it into the playoffs, more so than anything. Really looking at everything, Patrick Kane obviously led the team with 84 points. That's not a surprise there. He's going to have to do that again this year to even give Chicago a outside shot of looking at a playoff spot. They've added two really big names, in my opinion, and that is Nikita Zadorov, who came over from Colorado last year. He's a big stay-at-home defenseman, just a big D-man, big body out front, on the back end. That's just solid shutdown D-man. And then they brought in Matthias Yanmark from the Dallas Stars, which I don't think a lot of people know. He's kind of the depth guy. He's a bottom 6 forward, definitely a third liner in my opinion. He can chip in offensively. He can do all the things right, but is he going to make that big of an impact? I don't know. He was a great player in Dallas. I loved watching him here in Dallas, and I think he can do something in Chicago if he's put with the right people in order to succeed. Now, they had 3 major losses this offseason, and goaltender Corey Crawford obviously went over to the Devils, decided, hey, you know what, I'm going to retire. That's totally fine. But they lose Crawford, they lose Brenden Saad, and then defenseman Olli Maatta. I was a big fan of Olli Maatta. I think he's got great things still left to do, but we'll talk about him a little bit later because he's somewhere in my notes of players to talk about. So a few players to watch out for in Chicago is I want to see Dylan Strome take the next step. Right now, Dylan Strome, in theory, when he was drafted, was a top 6 forward. Right now, he hasn't really produced at that level. He hasn't really shown that he can do that consistently. So I think we are looking for Dylan Strome to take that kind of next step in his career and see what he can do. Another one that I want to watch is Zadorov, obviously coming over into a new team. I want to see what he does. He's going to bring a veteran, just big body presence into Chicago, which I think on the back end they're probably missing. One guy that I want to see step up is Colin Delia, who I'm guessing he's going to be their starting goaltender because Malcolm Subban's their number 2. Like, those are their 2 goalies right now. So it's going to be interesting to see who is 1A, 1B, if they split, if Subban is truly a backup goaltender. That's something we will have to wait and see for the season to roll out. Kirby Dock was another player I was super excited to watch this season, obviously getting hurt in the pre-tournament game for the World Juniors. He's going to be out a majority of the season, so we're not going to see him a whole lot, which obviously is disappointing. We probably won't see him at all, considering he's not supposed to be back until May. And by that point, more than likely Chicago is going to be out of the race. So I don't see why they might put him in for a few games, but there's also no point in rushing him back into it, because by that point, Chicago is going to be out of the playoff race. There's no point for them to rush him back. So looking at the special team numbers is honestly quite disappointing if you're a Blackhawks fan. Their power play only ran at 15%, which is atrocious, to put it nicely, especially when you think they got Jonathan Toews, Patrick Kane, they had Kirby Dock last year, they had Dylan Strome, they had all these good scoring offensive players, and they could only run 15% on the power play. That's a big yikes if you're a Hawks fan. Now, on the flip side of it, their PK ran at 82%. So that's good, obviously. 82% is not a small number by any means. One thing that we have to remember with the Blackhawks this season is they're in one of the toughest divisions in the NHL this season. And the GM and everybody came out and literally said, we are in a rebuild. So I don't know how it's going to look for them. Currently, I have them sitting 7th in the standings out of 8 teams. They could go down to 8 out of 8, depending on what Detroit looks like. I just don't think they're worse than Detroit right now, especially with their top 3, top 6 forwards. It's really going to come down to goaltending for them. Figure out which guy's their starting goaltender, who's their goaltender of the future, and potentially even looking forward into next season of, okay, who do we have to bring in to help? Because I don't think Malcolm Subban's the answer. He's bounced around from club to club. I just don't think he's the answer. He might be able to find his game in Chicago. I hope he does, because he was a very promising goaltender back in juniors. So moving on, we have the Columbus Blue Jackets with a record of 33-22-15 for 5th place in the Metro. They lost in the first round to the eventual Stanley Cup winners of Tampa Bay. So losing in the first round to the Cup winning team, not horrible. They made it a good series for the most part, which was fun to watch. So a big thing that stood out to me was Pierre-Luc Dubois. He led the team with 49 points. And if you think about it, each team played roughly about 70 games last year before it was shut down. The fact is that the leader only got 49 points is kind of worrying if you're Columbus. Now, granted, they weren't a high-scoring team. They were winning games 2-1, 1-0, 3-2. Like, they weren't winning games 6-1, 7-1, 5-4. They weren't winning these high-scoring games. So that kind of is the reason why the points aren't that high, but it's still definitely something that down the road, if Columbus wants to be a contender for the Cup, they have to look at and they have to address. Now, speaking of the scoring, they brought in 2 major keys, in my opinion, that are only going to make this team that much better, and that is Max Domi and then Mikko Koivu. I am so sorry. I'm going to butcher names all night, apparently, but that's okay. We're going to work through that. Domi, obviously coming in from Montreal, he just really didn't fit in Montreal. I think he's going to come play under Torts and going to love the coaching style, and he is going to exceed everybody's expectations. I think he's going to slide into their top line, be an absolute menace on the ice, get a bunch of points, help Pierre-Luc Dubois out, maybe score some more points for him, and then bringing Koivu in. All that does is bring in a veteran leader that's been around the league forever, who's seen it all. He's done it all except for win a Stanley Cup. He's coming in and helping out these young kids as a mentor, and that's awesome. Their only big loss of the season from last season to this season was Josh Anderson and Alexander Wenberg. Wenberg was bought out, so obviously they didn't see a future with him. That's fine. It's the NHL. It's business. Josh Anderson, he was good. He helped the scoring, but I mean, Domi can replace him, no issues, in my opinion there. So I'm really looking forward to the Domi Koivu experiment there, see how both of those work. I think Max Domi is going to be absolutely amazing there. I think he's going to fit in. He's going to love the coaching staff, and it's going to be perfect for them. And I think he's going to be there for a long time. They also have a really, really good mix of youth, and they have some good goaltenders. We just have to figure out if these goaltenders can survive in this league. And is it going to be an issue of, hey, they had one good season, now they're going down the drain? I hope not. I don't think that's the case. They're two solid goaltenders. The goaltenders need the guys in front of them to score goals and score a bunch more. Looking at their special team numbers, penalty kill, 81%. That's a Torts coach team completely understand. They're going to be defensive minded first. Power play, 16%. Not good, obviously, but if you're only scoring, they're only scoring 2-3 goals a game. It makes sense why their power play numbers are as low as they are. Still something that obviously needs to be addressed. Moving on, the next team we're going to preview is the Dallas Stars. They obviously made it all the way to the Cup final, came 2 wins short of winning the Stanley Cup, lost in 6 to Tampa, but they had a decent regular season. I would say a pretty good regular season at 37, 24, and 8 for third in the Central, which is no small order, especially in the Central Division. Seguin led the team with 50 points, but he's now out for most of the season, so they're going to lose those 50 points. They have to figure out where they're going to make those 50 points up. I don't know where those 50 points are going to come from, considering the Dallas Stars were a low scoring hockey team. When they won games, they won them. But when they lost, they also lost big. And you could tell times throughout last season, they were winning games, 3-1, 4-1. But then all of a sudden, they couldn't score for a month or two on end. And in a season that is no longer a marathon, but is a sprint, I don't know how they are going to do that. I really, really think they're going to struggle with scoring goals this year with Seguin gone. They also lost Matthias Yanmark, he was a great third line center for them. I don't know why they let him go. Obviously, they see other guys filling his role, and that's completely understandable. Two guys I really want to watch for this season are going to be Ben and Radulov, and how they are going to lead this team without Tyler Seguin. Those three are your big three in Dallas, and you take one out of the equation, it can cause some issues. We've seen it in the past where without one of those big three, the team struggled. So those two guys are really going to have to step up and find the back of the net, do all the right things, and take some pressure off the bottom six guys, even the second line forwards, and really find the back of the net. Two guys that I really want to see step up this year, Rupe Hintz. He's obviously an established NHLer. I think he still has another gear to go to. I think with Seguin gone this year, he can reach that other level. I truly think he's going to be the answer to the scoring woes for Dallas, especially with Seguin gone. He's going to have a bigger role, and I think he's somebody that can fill it. Another guy I'm really excited to see is Jake Ottinger in net. The Stars saw him a little bit in the playoffs last year. I think he played like one game. He's a young guy. He's obviously backing up Khudobin with Bishop hurt, kind of like Seguin for the majority of the season. So Ottinger is a big question mark in Dallas right now. And I think the only other big question mark that's keeping the Stars from being a great hockey team right now is going to be their goaltending with Anton Khudobin in net. Look, he played fantastic throughout the playoffs, and there's no questions about that. Like I have zero issues with saying he played amazing throughout the playoffs. The only issue is, can he do that throughout a full season, a 54-game schedule? Because he's going to have to take the brunt of it with Ottinger being a younger rookie goaltender. I just don't see him playing more than 15 games this season. So Khudobin's really going to have to step up and be a solid starting goaltender. And if he can't, the Stars are going to struggle this year because they're in a division with a good amount of scoring in it, and they are going to get into some trouble if they can't score and also can't keep the puck out of their net. As for their special teams, The numbers don't super like they're so. I mean, power play ran at 21%, penalty kill 79%. Both of those numbers are at league average or just above league average, so not bad there. I still think the Stars, if you look at their roster on paper, should have a better power play than what they do. Penalty kill at 79, though, nothing wrong there. They're keeping the puck out of the net on the kills, and that's what matters. Dallas is a huge question mark for me. They need solid goaltending. If they can get solid goaltending, I see them being the second place team in the division this season. If they don't get solid goaltending, I can see them sitting around third or fourth, even potentially falling out of a playoff spot into fifth. I highly doubt that's going to happen. But if Khudobin does not play well and Ottinger can't figure out at the National League level full time, it's going to be very, very interesting to see what they do. But moving on from the Dallas Stars, we got the rebuilding Detroit Red Wings. And I feel bad if you're a Red Wings fan. They finished 17-49-5 for last place in the NHL. They were expected to get the first overall pick, but then they lost that. So they don't even get the first overall pick in Lafreniere last year. So your rebuild just got 10 times slower is what it felt like. Dylan Larkin led the team 53 points, which, for a rebuild, that's not horrible, but not great. The really, really, really bad part with the Wings this season is the division they're playing in is just good. I mean, all the teams really from the first seed to the sixth seed are kind of in a big clump. And then it's kind of the seventh and eighth seed. And obviously I have Chicago in the seventh seed. That means the Wings are going to be in the eighth. I don't see the Wings being better than anybody in this division. I think they're going to be the game that teams come out and just play whoever you want, have fun, make it kind of a stat night. The Wings did add Bobby Ryan, Mark Stahl, and Thomas Greiss in net. I just don't think those three additions are going to do a whole lot besides bring in a veteran presence, teach the young kids the right way to play. They're in a rebuild. They are 1,000% in a rebuild. Everybody knows about it. Yzerman's there. He's going to turn them around like he did to Tampa in a few years. Unfortunately, right now, you just have to sit with the suckiness. And if you're a Wings fan, that's probably a tough one to swallow after being so good for so long. But a few bright spots they have is Bertuzzi, Larkin, and Mantha. Those are three great players to build around, and I think they're going to be leaned on heavily this season for a lot of the scoring and just, how Detroit's going to look in the future. Two players I am excited to watch is Fabry. I really hope he has a breakout season. He's always been hurt. Everything's not going his way in his NHL career. He's a great player from what we've seen in the small sample we've seen with St. Louis and other teams like that before he's gotten hurt. I also want to see Thomas Greiss step up and really be a starting goaltender. I think Detroit kind of sort of has one, but they also kind of sort of don't. So it would be good to see Greiss step up, be a starting goaltender. He's now away from Varlamov in the Islanders. I think that's why he came over here. He wants to be a starting goaltender. I think he has the capabilities. It's just, is he going to take the reins and do it? Power play numbers are, it hurts me to say that they're running at 14% on the power play. But look, guys, they're rebuilding. They're in, I'm going to say, year 2 of a rebuild. This will be year 2 of a rebuild for them. So I don't really expect a lot from them this year. I don't see them getting out of the cellar of the division or even the NHL. And I really think they're going to be a team competing for the first overall spot next year. And look, if you're Detroit, it sucks. But hey, you know what? Like, you get through, the next 2-3 years and you're right back in the playoffs looking good. You might even be a Tampa team. Who knows? Moving on, though, from what's going to be, in my opinion, the 8th seed in the division of the Red Wings on to a team that could potentially shock some people in the Florida Panthers. They went 35-26-8 for 4th in the Atlantic last year. They lost in the qualifiers to the Islanders, which I don't think anybody was super surprised about. The Panthers have a lot of question marks, and it all starts with Sergei Bobrovsky in net. Is he going to live up to his $10 million deal? I don't know. Nobody knows, but he's got to figure it out, because if he does, I think they have a team that could maybe contend for a playoff spot right now. Definitely not a cup contender, but a playoff team nonetheless, which is huge. Jonathan Huberdeau led the team with 78 points last year. They're going to need more of that from him this year, if not maybe a little bit more. They added Anthony Duclair, and I think he's a great addition to their lineup. I think he's going to do great things for them, and I really can see him thriving in Florida with the elevated ice time that he should be able to get. They also brought in Patrick Hornquist, Racco Gudas. Like, they brought in a solid group of guys. Now, they did lose a lot of the scoring in Mike Hoffman leaving and Eric Holla leaving. So there's spots to be filled, and they brought in players that I think can fill those roles for the most part. But like I said before, Bobrovsky has to show that he's worth the $10 million that he's getting. He didn't last season at all. He wasn't even close at last season. And that's a huge question mark. I think if he can play well, the team might have a chance. Another player I want to watch is Keith Yandle. Apparently, there was a rumor that came out today from the Florida front office that said, hey, you know what? We're kind of ready to move on from him. I still think Yandle's a great player. I think he's got lots of life in him left. And I personally want to see him, thrive this season. So hopefully it's kind of a win-win for the Panthers as well. They can trade him for something high. Who knows? I hope the best for him this season. Power play and penalty kill, league average 21 and 78. Look, they're not gonna woo you off your feet. They're not gonna play a big style of hockey. They're gonna win a lot of games. They're gonna lose a lot of games. They're kind of that middle of the road team. If Bobrovsky can play good, they can make the playoffs. If he doesn't play good and they don't get any scoring, they're looking for 6th and 7th with the Hawks. That's kind of where I have them right now. I have them sitting 6th right now, just above the Hawks, as I do think they are the better team above the Hawks, but not by a whole lot. But who knows at this point? I mean, it's way too early in the season to know, obviously, because we're just starting it today. But my guess is they're not going to be in the playoffs, especially in the Central Division with how deep it is. But moving on, we're going to go to the Nashville Predators. They were 35, 26, and 8 for 5th place in the Central. They lost to Arizona in the play-in. I would say rather shockingly. I think a lot of people expected them to beat Arizona, but Arizona came out and played really well. Nonetheless, the leading point getter for them was Roman Josi at 65 points. Now, a lot of people get scared when a defenseman has that many points and leads the team. But if you think about it, I mean, 40 to 50, of those points were assists. So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, like not a big deal. He actually had 49 assists last year and 16 goals for the 65 points. So, I mean, he's getting a ton of assists because he runs their power play. And he's just a puck-moving defenseman. So nothing to be super worried about there. Two big ads this year were Eric Holla come in, hopefully help the scoring. Another big ad they brought in was Matt Borowiecki on defense to really tighten it up there, help Josi out, take a little bit of the pressure off of him. I think that only makes them a lot better of a hockey team bringing him in. Two guys they lost, big ones, I don't know, Kyle Turris, they bought him out, so obviously they didn't want him anyway, and that's fine. I mean, he was getting up there in age. He wasn't producing as much. It's understandable. The other one being Nick Bonino. Bonino's a third liner, kind of at best, maybe sneaks into the second line with injuries. A loss nonetheless, but I don't think a big loss that they can't look past. One big thing I do want to watch out for this year for the Predators is how UC Saros does. If he takes kind of over the reins from Pecorine, I think this is his year to do it. And to show the organization that, like, hey, like, I'm your guy going forward. Pecorine is not. I'm your guy going forward. I think that's going to be huge for him. I think this year is going to be kind of his make or break year. I think if he doesn't take over the reins from Pecorine, Nashville might be looking around for a different goalie. But UC Saros, I think, has to do something special here. Nashville's a little bit of an older team. There's not too many, young guys on their roster. So to put them as a cup contender, I don't think so. To put them in the playoffs, yeah, they're kind of that bubble team on the playoffs. I have them sitting fifth in the standings. There's so many question marks surrounding this team. I don't see how they make the playoffs this year. But again, that's just me basing on my opinion of what I see from them. And what the numbers tell me. I mean, their power play ran at 17%, which is not good at all. I mean, 17%. I just don't understand. They're not an offensive team. Their penalty kill 76%, which again, not good at all. One of the worst ones in the league. So I mean, a lot of question marks around the Predators. I just don't see them being a cup contending team. Even a playoff team. They're a bubble team at best. I have them sitting at fifth, so they would just be missing the playoffs. Especially in the division they're in, maybe if they were in a different division, they might have an easier run, but unlikely. Moving on to last but not least in the Central Division, the reigning Stanley Cup champions, hoping to go back-to-back even potentially, and that is the Tampa Bay Lightning. After finishing the season 43-21-6 for second place in the Atlantic, they ended up winning the Stanley Cup in easy fashion. I would say they had a really good playoff run and they did everything right. Nikita Kucherov led the team with 65 points. They really didn't bring anybody in. The only major loss they had was Shattenkirk. They do have a few question marks around them with Kucherov out for the season. I don't know how they're going to fill his scoring woes as he led that offense for a lot of it. I think a lot of it's now going to go back onto Steven Stamkos, and there's question marks around him of will he be able to stay healthy? I really hope so. I hope Stamkos can come back and be healthy, have a full healthy season, and replace Kucherov in the scoring department because Tampa's going to need it. They're going to have to do it a little bit more by committee this year, but I think if Stammer can come in and put 50, 60, 70 points on the board, that's going to be huge for them. One big player I want to watch this season is Cal Foote. I just want to see him keep playing. Like the kid's going to get better every single year. And I think this year he can make the big step up and really show what he's capable of doing. That's really all I have for Tampa Bay. Their power play ran at 23%, penalty kill 81%. Look, these guys are the defending Stanley Cup champions. They didn't lose a whole lot. They didn't gain a whole lot this season. Their roster somehow mostly kind of stayed intact. I have them winning the division here in the Central Division. It is going to be a tougher division. But I got Tampa going first, maybe second if Dallas can figure out how to score and get a bunch of great goaltending. So right now, my standings sit as Tampa, Dallas, Carolina, Columbus as your 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I got the Predators, Panthers, Hawks, and Wings at 5, 6, 7, 8. A few notes that I have. Tampa and Dallas are the clear 1, 2 in the division. It depends on where their goaltending sits and where they can get scoring from, is if Dallas is going to be first or second. And I think if Tampa plays like they did in the playoffs, they're going to be first. There's no doubt. Carolina, Columbus, Predators, and the Panthers, I think they're going to fight it out for that 3rd through 6th spot. So those 4 teams, I see them as playoff teams. And it's going to be interesting where they fall within the race. I mean, Dallas could even go down to a 4th seed by chance if their goaltending is that bad. Carolina, they have a few question marks. They might be a team to be able to sneak into second. Same with Columbus if they can find scoring. And then obviously the last 2 teams, the Hawks and Wings, they're going to be battling it out for 7th and 8th. I just don't see how Chicago is worse than the Red Wings. But you never know. This season, I generally would say it's a long season, but it's not. This season's going to be a sprint at only 56 games. So I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited. This was the rundown of the Central Division. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us immensely. And obviously, the next subscriber goal that we figure out, which will probably be 5,000, we'll even have hopefully a bigger giveaway for that. So tell your friends about it. And thank you guys for tuning in.